But then, and this is what I want to talk about the rest of our time together, is how do we intentionally create stories in our learning environments? How do we format the time that our students spend with us as stories that are unfolding with real conflict, authenticity that matters to them? How do we do that so that when they look back at their experiences with us as they're learning these very complex ideas and skills and knowledge, that they're remembering it as a story so that neural coupling can happen so that they don't just forget it later on, so it sticks with them the rest of their career. So I want to give you an example of that, and I feel like the best way to really give an example of how we can create stories and how they can change students' lives would be to tell you a poem. There was like this cold chill that went through the room when I said the word poem. It's okay. It's not that kind of poem. So I want to tell you a poem real quick. It's called Superhero Mountain Climbers. This is a true story. I know a girl who is 14 but is forced to be 40. She fiddles with the latchkey hidden in the pocket of her ripped jeans as she watches that hour hand hit 3 and 6 hour, signaling she's now on the clock. Now, she doesn't go to math club or swim practice or run home and catch another nap on her mattress, no. This girl walks 2 miles to a government-funded daycare where she picks up her 2 little sisters and carries the pair 2 more miles to her 2-bedroom home. Her dad will be back at 11, and his next shift starts at 7, and Mom, she's been out of the picture for over a year, and so this girl has to pick up her dad's half-empty cans of beer as she tries to steer the youngest from sticking a fork in a socket. And on the other side of the room, the other sister's temper bursts like a rocket because this girl won't let her have a piece of chocolate before dinner. Now, if it was me, my patience would be growing thinner. But this girl has this funny face she makes that almost always alleviates even the most severe angry outbreaks. And she has to rely on this look when she cooks supper for 3, and it's usually something soft and cheap like ramen or macaroni, something that she can also give to the baby. And then after eating last, doing dishes, giving baths, brushing hair, trying to find 2 sets of clean pajamas for her sisters to wear, giving the older child 2 puffs from her Advair, then soothing the baby's cries and reading Goodnight Moon 3 times, this girl sits at the table and does her homework. Somehow this girl passed all of her classes last semester, even when the weight of her own reality pressed down so hard that it threatened to stretch her beyond her ability to believe that her life could ever get better. This girl passed all of her classes last semester. This girl is a superhero. She conquers algebra by day and the odds by night. Now, how do you quantify her story? Wrap it up real nice on a test and send it back to the state to report on her progress. Can I send my governor her story and convince him that results happen outside of the SAT? Can I let my superintendent know that the C this girl received in English class signaled more than the fact that she passed, but that this 14-year-old who works a second shift was standing on the tip of Everest, but is now another step away from that precipice? And I can see it in her bright green eyes that this girl knows that she's going to ski down this mountain instead of tumble. Because you see, I teach this girl without worrying what the tests will say. And I remind her that someday you'll be able to write on your resume that you work well under pressure. And when an interviewer asks, and you can give them concrete examples of your ability to multitask. And you can tell that story of how you passed every last class while raising your 2 little sisters. And then someday, Sarah, you'll know how to rock your little girl to sleep at night. And you'll know what face to make to cool tempers. And then someday you can teach your little girl how to mountain climb. Can we put heroism on a standardized test? Can we measure perseverance with a 3-hour exam that tells us which student is best? There is a jurisdiction designed to assign value to children with limited measure, an all-powerful set of numbers and letters that tell us which student is better than the other. And a spotlight is fixed to the peak of a towering A, trying to illuminate wrong from right, ignoring hearts and shining bright on the left sides of brains that tell us which student is smart. You, child, are 72% of what we deem as best. Your intelligence is average, according to this test. You see, you need to try harder, or you will become a failure. And this voice is the last thing this girl needs to hear when she wonders if Medicaid is going to cover her sister's inhaler. The system's threatening to impale her. because the only one she has to tell her, "Oh girl, you are magnificent," are a couple of teachers. And the presence of this looming beast is making it harder for them to reach her. Because you see, sometimes this girl needs to take a nap at school. Not because she's too cool to pay attention or that she's trying to break the rules. She's just tired. And in the back of her mind lurks a demon with a raspy voice that whispers, "You were 2 percentage points from failing. You are going to continue the cycle." And the thought and the weight of this voice makes her want to buckle. But then she looks at the calluses on her young hands, and she's reminded of those number 1 fans that she sees each day, and she picks up her head off her desk and knows that it's going to be okay, because those C's that she earned are worth far more than an A. So that girl, Sarah, is a true story. And you know, that girl comes to school hungry, right? You know, that girl comes to school with trauma that I can't even get my head around, with sadness in her heart that I really just can't relate to. And yet, and this is the daunting part as teachers, because I'm guessing many of our students come from really troubled pasts, have gone through things that we don't even want to face, but we know they have to. I've got to teach this girl grammar, right? I've got to teach this girl history. You've got to teach your students all of this stuff despite the fact that this is what their lives look like. That's the daunting part of being an educator, is I've got to teach them and make them be successful in spite of all that exists in their stories. And so how do we do that? You know, with Sarah, I've got to figure out, well, first I can recognize her story. How can I now utilize it? How can I take some of her strengths? And then how can I create a story that's meaningful and engages her on a deep and transformative level?